Can I tell you something I've never understood? I've never understood why another person's words are supposed to become my truth. Seriously, it doesn't make sense to me. If someone called me a tomato, I'd laugh. I'd think, okay, that's a weird thing to call someone. Then I'd move on with my day. So why is it different when someone calls you annoying? Too much, ugly, selfish, unlovable, lazy? Why do those words suddenly feel true? I've genuinely never understood that. And the more I think about it, the more I realize it has nothing to do with the words. It has everything to do with the meaning we give them. People always tell you, don't care what people think. Okay, but how? Nobody explains why we care in the first place. Growing up, people always said, think about what everyone is going to say. What will people think? People are watching. And every time I said, I honestly don't care, people looked at me like something was wrong with me. Almost like not caring was the strange thing. But I kept asking myself, why would another person's opinion decide who I am? They're speaking from their experiences, their beliefs, their fears, not mine. So why would I borrow their reality and make it my identity? Here's what I eventually learned. It isn't really about the words. It's about belonging. Thousands of years ago, being rejected by your group wasn't just embarrassing. It could genuinely reduce your chances of surviving. So your brain evolved to take social acceptance seriously. That's why criticism can feel surprisingly painful. Your brain isn't thinking, someone disagreed with me. It's thinking, am I still accepted? That's why people care so much about judgment. Not because they're weak, because they're human. But here's where I think we get it wrong. Here's the part I still struggle to understand. Someone says, you're too much. Why does your brain immediately ask, what if they're right? Why? Why not ask, what made them think that? Or, is that actually true? Or even, that's one person's opinion. Somewhere along the way, we started treating opinions like facts, but they aren't. Opinions tell you something about the person speaking, not automatically about the person they're speaking to. This is how I think about it. Imagine I walked up to you and said, you're a tomato. You wouldn't cry. You wouldn't spend the next 5 years wondering if you're actually a tomato, because your brain immediately rejects it. It doesn't match reality. So here's my question. If someone calls you lazy, or ugly, or difficult, why does your brain sometimes accept those words so quickly? Not because the words are more powerful, because maybe a part of you already fears they're true. The words don't create the insecurity. They often reveal one that was already there. Once your brain accepts a label, something fascinating happens. It starts looking for proof. If someone called you selfish, suddenly you'll remember every time you said no. If someone called you annoying, you'll replay every conversation. Your brain isn't trying to hurt you, it's trying to stay consistent. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. Your brain naturally notices evidence that supports what it already believes, even when the belief isn't true. Then I realized something else. Not every opinion deserves the same weight. Think about it. If you wanted to become a doctor, would you ask someone who's never studied medicine how to do it? Probably not. So why do we do that with our lives? Why do we let someone who's never built the life we want decide whether we're capable of building it? I've noticed something. The people who are deeply focused on building something meaningful usually spend more time building than judging. They're too busy working on their own lives to make yours their main concern. That doesn't mean every criticism is wrong. Sometimes people see things we don't. Sometimes feedback helps us grow. But there's a difference between feedback and letting someone's opinion become your identity. Before you accept someone's words, ask yourself one question. Have they earned the right to shape how I see myself? Because not every voice deserves that kind of authority. I think the better question isn't, how do I stop caring? It's, who decided this opinion deserves authority over my life? Because not every voice deserves influence. Some people know you. Some people know one moment. Some people know a rumor. Some people don't know you at all. Yet we often hand them the pen and let them write our identity. So here's what I want you to remember. Someone else's opinion isn't automatically your truth. It's just information. You get to decide whether it's useful or whether you leave it where it belongs. Because if you spend your life believing every label someone gives you, you'll never discover who you actually are. Maybe the question was never, what do people think about me? Maybe the better question is, why did I let someone else's words become louder than my own?